Thank y'all for coming today. This is the third and final installment in Dr. Kirksey's series on education policy research. We've kind of covered, well, not kind of, he has covered some of the implications of education policy research and how it intersects with some things. He's also covered some hands-on skills. So this one is going to kind of tie it all together and talk about next steps and like what it is like to be in an education policy research team and things like that. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Kirksey.
Cool. Thank you so much for the introduction. Great to see everyone. Glad that you made it. You're here for this final talk. This top is probably going to be my favorite of the series. I mean, I think it's all useful information and great, but one of the things that I've noticed over the years, being kind of a first generation student myself, with respect to graduate school and research in general, is there's a lot of just mystery about the idea of doing undergraduate research, even thinking about what graduate school is, what it might be like, and just general considerations when we think about ourselves as education policy researchers. You know, I was pretty early on where I was, thinking about being interested in education policy, but I didn't really know what that would look like until I started to gain some exposure and research experience. And with some, I think, persistence of my own, but also a lot of luck along the way, I've learned a lot about how to make this path a lot easier and more transparent for those who are interested in pursuing it. So that's what today's talk is going to really be about. Like Jeremy said, it's really a culminating talk to tie in everything we've talked about from the skills, but really at the end of this, what I want you to be able to envision for yourself is what it would be like researching with somebody like me or one of my colleagues in education policy here at Tech or another institution of higher ed. So the way I've outlined this talk for today is divided into 4 big tips that I have that I've learned over the years being an undergraduate researcher at Colorado College, then moving into my PhD program at UC Santa Barbara, and then now being faculty here at Tech. And at each one of those levels, you start to, I think, gain a clearer perspective on what it is that other side wants, right? Like all the stakeholders who are involved in undergraduate research. And I've learned a lot about the implications of not knowing what to do and what those next steps are. So our agenda today is going to be divided in 4 sections. I'm going to talk to you about selecting the type of research experience that you want that's right for you and aligns with your short and long-term goals. We'll talk about understanding faculty perspectives, and I note here that it's certainly not easy to understand faculty. It takes a unique person to want to be a faculty member, let alone pursue a PhD. I'll also talk to you about what it's like to understand what's involved with researching with a particular faculty member. And then finally, the culminating tip 4 is just knowing, practically speaking, the steps to actually pull together tips 1 through 3. So let's start out talking about selecting an undergraduate research experience that is right for you and right with your goal alignment, right? So we know that there's 3 types of undergraduate research, generally speaking, that you can conduct in higher ed. We have course-based undergraduate research experiences. These are also known as cures. It's intentionally kind of set up to be a formal course where there's 20 to 30 students, faculty member. Sometimes it's even aligned with your major or minor, but it's in a course formal setting like that. And then many of you may have the opportunity to actually conduct an independent thesis or a research project on your own as part of like an honors opportunity or certificate. And then what we'll talk about today is faculty-led research experiences, because this is what I think there's often a hidden curriculum as part of like how you join a faculty-led research experience, and how do you make the most out of it, right? And don't burn out and swear away research experience entirely. So let's start out with what you should do when thinking about selecting the right type of education, of undergraduate research experience for yourself. You really want to hone in on what is going to set you up to be the most successful. And so that starts by, for yourself, having measurable goals, goals that you can tangibly quantify, write down. I want to be able to proficiently code, right? Or I want to learn more about Microsoft Excel, or I want to learn Tableau. All these tangible skills that you can write down for yourself, but then also have abstract goals that you're not afraid to kind of lean into either. So this is just thinking, I just want to know what what research is, right? I want to think of myself of what it would be like to be a professor or a scholar or a graduate student, things that mean a lot to you. Or in my case, I've always been really driven on finding a career where I was happy and felt like I was making the right money, I was in a good location, I was around good colleagues, but also a career that I wanted to make a difference in. And so even thinking to yourself, I want to learn what it's like to make a difference in research or what that could look like is also a fine abstract goal. And then also aligning these two opportunities you've seen for yourself and you've reflected on in the past, even if it was a long time ago or recently, thinking about career options for yourself or what other people have talked about as career options, even if they don't necessarily interest you at the time. Further education, do you want to go to graduate school? That's a tough question, right? Do you want to pursue different certificates or just training, maybe in computer science, right? Not a formal degree per se, but just additional training and professional development on the side. Do you want an external fellowship? Do you want to get paid for undergraduate research? These are the types of opportunities you can start to outline for yourself when considering what type of research experience you want, because as you will learn, not all of the research experiences that are available come with these different opportunities and are designed to set you up for the same type of success. Also, outline what skills you have currently. I think one of the big misconceptions in undergraduate research is that you as an undergraduate, like what could you possibly contribute to a faculty member's project or working with graduate students? And that's a huge myth. There's a lot of skills that you already have that you've developed, writing, doing background research, and then of course, think to yourself, what are the skills that you want to develop as part of this opportunity? Because the first question you're gonna get in an interview is going to be, why do you wanna do this, right? And so thinking to yourself, what are some tangible, marketable skills that you feel like you can gain from this? And that's also gonna inform the type of faculty member you wanna work for and the type of research project you wanna engage with. Then consider both the research itself as well as the mentoring opportunities. So another thing that I think we can get caught up in when we think about doing undergraduate research is what is the research topic that I'm going to be working on? What is that project? What type of education policy am I going to be looking at? And we overlook the type of mentorship that you can receive as part of that opportunity. So simply being in conversations with a professor's graduate students, attending their lab that may have nothing to do with you're currently working on as part of their project, but is really good professional development and exposure for you as you start to think of yourself, in your future. So consider both the research topic and the interest, but also weight just as heavily the mentorship that you feel like you could receive as part of that. And then finally, this is part, I think, of dispelling some of that hidden curriculum. Seek out intermediaries, right? So you already have interactions, whether they're super strong connections or not, but with graduate students, with faculty members here at Texas Tech. And so think about what are the types of intermediaries that could help either inform your decision of the type of undergraduate research you want to participate in, also, just the type of faculty member you want to work for, or even learn from a faculty member's graduate student what it's like to work with that faculty member. These types of intermediaries can be really helpful in gaining kind of information about what it would be like to participate in that experience. But it's not just the people that you know, there's also organizations on Tech's campus, but in other institutions as well, that are meant to be kind of a bridge between faculty and undergraduate students. So the reason we're here giving this talk today is we're part of TRU's efforts to kind of engage faculty in undergraduate research opportunities. But TRU's not the only organization. There's other internal kind of funds within different colleges and departments that can engage undergraduate research experiences, as well as other organizations on campus. So we've talked about what you should be doing when thinking about selecting that ideal undergraduate research experience for you. Let's talk about some of the don'ts. And of course, I should have prefaced this entire talk by saying all of this is from my perspective and my kind of lived experience. Don't take it as black and white. But from the education policy researcher's perspective, some common misconceptions that I think can interrupt and impede your ability to choose that optimal undergraduate research experience for yourself is one, to box yourself in by saying, I'm only going to do research, or I should only be doing research within my major or with faculty who belong to my department. Some of the best undergraduate students I've worked with have come from totally different fields, fields like zoology or mathematics, right? Being in a graduate school of education, as I was as a graduate student, those were the types of students that would come work with me and support. And then later on, they didn't realize, oh wow, like education policy research is really cool. Like, because it's very rare that you find something like education policy as a major on campus anyway. So don't box yourself in. Think about researching with different departments, and really, the whole point of education policy is it's very interdisciplinary. So it's going to draw from perspectives from multiple fields anyway. So that's the first. Second, I feel like one of the first things I get in an interview with an undergraduate student is kind of writing themselves off by saying, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at coding, I'm not good at statistics, STEM stuff, right? Like I'm not good at the general broad conception of what research is. And that's okay. That's the whole point of gaining experience in undergraduate research, especially in education policy, where we like to talk to all sorts of disciplines who come from different traditions and their methodologies, different kind of theoretical frameworks. These are things, and if those terms are not as part of your common lingo, that's okay too. You'll learn some of that as well. So don't box yourself in by saying that just because I've never, coded before, that you can't work with somebody like me who I code for hours, right? A day sometimes, or I should be. It's kind of one of those things like you should be writing your thesis or whatever, but I should be coding more. So don't write yourself off for what you don't have. Reorient yourself. Go back to the do slide and think about what you do have. And that's my next point. So I'll move on. Then another piece to this is also don't think that just as, I don't know what year you all are, but don't think that only juniors and seniors level or upperclassmen can participate in undergraduate research. I think we should be encouraging undergraduate research at all levels of college. And so I love working with all levels of skill development, where you're at in your degree program, et cetera. And then also, don't think that the only benefit is learning how to do research, right? So part of undergraduate research experience is, of course, learning more about research, what it's like to come up with a research question, apply the methods to answer that type of research question, and explore different types of data that are available. But it's also just learning like what it's like to be a faculty member. It's having conversations with graduate students who may love or hate what they're doing. And that informs a lot of your perspective about what you want to be doing, right? Think about it as a selfish opportunity for you to really start to get to know some of the organization that is higher education and how some of these members of the organization interact with each other and how that results somehow in research, right? And then we talked about this earlier, but just remind yourself, don't box yourself into one type of research experience. So I know it can be tempting to think, oh, like research is in a lab, like a physical lab where I'm looking with microscopes and collecting data or watching praying mantis like eat things. Research can be more than that, right? Research can be at your computer. If you like to work from home, education policy research is great, right? And so research can take many different forms. And also, if you like to talk to people, there are forms of education policy research where you interview people. You actually do talk to people. You go in schools. You observe teachers. So don't box yourself into one type of experience. In fact, I would encourage you to try to gain all sorts of different types of experiences to figure out what it is that someday you may eventually be getting out of bed for, right, and inspires you to do your work.